Welcome to RUBRICA. RUBRICA is an iPad app designed to help teachers create and manage rubrics on their iPad, to maintain a list of students, and then to use the rubrics that they have stored on the iPad to assess the students against appropriate learning tasks. This little video is designed to help you get started with the main features of RUBRICA. So we're going to start by tapping on the Rubrics button to have a look at the Rubrics side of the app. So tapping there brings us to a list of the rubrics that are stored in the app. You can easily sort your list by tapping on the name header here, or find. If you have a long list of rubrics, you can find them very easily. You can tap on the list here for tags that are associated with the various rubrics. For instance, if we select maths, then it simply finds the rubric that is a maths rubric. Or you can type in anything here and it will find those rubrics that conform to what you type, or have the text somewhere there with respect to what you type. And clicking back on Show All. Now, creating a new rubric is simply as pressing the button here. To go to an individual rubric, simply tap on its name, like so, and up comes the rubric. Again, you have the option of creating a new rubric here. When you do so, you can then begin filling in the relevant fields here. We have the name of the rubric, tags associated with the rubric, and we can simply select from the existing list of tags, like so, or we can type in a new tag. So for instance, year 11, hitting return will add that to the list of tags associated with the rubric, as well as included in the created tags for your app. You can add notes about the rubric here, and also acknowledge a source if you have taken the rubric from somewhere else. Now, down here you see that we have the various criteria associated with the assessment and the values associated then with those individual criteria, and you have room to type in a reasonable description of what is associated with that value. We can also determine the marks that the student gets for each of these values. So you can actually type in what the score is for that particular value, which is quite a good feature. You'll also notice here that we can determine from the number of values associated with each individual criteria from 1 through to 5 simply by tapping on the number that you want over here. Now, what I'm going to do, rather than create a new rubric, is I'll duplicate this rubric and go OK to the message, and you can then see that it is a copy of the original rubric. Now we can then start by, you can change its name and add some notes, etc., whatever you want to do. You can actually remove tags by simply typing in the field. Now, what I'm going to do is to add a new criteria item to a rubric, we simply type or tap the button here and we get that, and we can then start to enter details associated with the criteria. Now, I'm going to say that we want this just to be a 2-value rubric, so tapping there will actually take out those there, and that the scores here, I'm going to make this a 10 and this 0, and then we'll simply say present and absent. So that what happens is, when we're doing our assessment and attendance is a relevant part of the assessment, then tapping on either of these will assign those scores. You'll see that the score over on the right always reflects the maximum score across the values that you've given them, and which are then tallied up, and you see the total that's possible to be achieved for the rubric in the field here. Returning to the list, you can see that our new duplicated rubric is in the list. From there, I'm going to go back into one of the rubrics. Let's choose the essay grading rubric. And I just want to explore with you the idea of being able to share your rubrics with your colleagues by the share button here. Now, we have a number of options. So if I tap the share button, it brings up a little pop over there. You can email your rubric directly to one of your fellow teachers, and they will receive an email with the rubric encoded in some text that they just need to copy and paste into the import field, which I'll show you in a minute. Or you can send the rubric to us for publication on our website, from where it can be shared by other teachers. They'll be able to download and import it into their copy of RUBRICA and use it. However, we do have a feature whereby if we tap the Keep Private button, the rubric will only be visible to members of your school who are registered on the multi-license agreement that your school might have purchased, so that a school can just share its own rubrics amongst its own teachers and not with the rest of the RUBRICA community. So this is quite a good idea. So what I'm going to show you now is that list of rubrics on the website. So we'll just close and go back to the list of rubrics. And from there we can see that we have the import a rubric button. So I'll tap on that. And we have a couple of tabs here. Import from email. Now into this field here is where you paste the text of the rubric that one of your colleagues might have sent to you. But the import from web tab, just tapping there, actually takes us to the internet and lists rubrics that are published on the internet on our website. Now, and so you'll see there that we have a My School button. So if I tap on that, stepping there, and you can see then there's a list of rubrics, not very meaningful ones, but a list of rubrics that are associated with your school. So as long as your school has submitted rubrics for sharing amongst all the teachers, they'll come up in the list here, and you can then view the details of any particular rubric. Now I'm not sure that these are going to make much sense, so going back, we just tap on the Find button, and from there we can view an individual rubric by tapping on the details for that rubric, and there we are. We can have a look at the rubric and decide whether that is a particular rubric that we want, from where tapping the Download button will bring it into RUBRICA for you to use. And there it is, and we can see we initially put the word imported there to let you know that that's where it's come from, but of course we can change that to say whatever you then want it to say. And going back to the list, we can see it there in the list, the imported rubric. And from there I'm going to take us back home. And from there we can look at the management of the students. So tapping on the Students button brings us to your list of students. Again, we have options for finding individual students. Oh, nothing there. So if I go as I am, we get Bart just like that. Or we can go back to Show All, and we can select maybe a class, and it finds the students associated with that class. Tapping on a student's name again will take you to the individual details for that student. And again, you have the option of tapping New to create a new student. We also, I might point out, have a photo field here whereby you can use the camera in your iPad to take a photo of the student. Now, the fields here aren't in any way compulsory. You can add or include as much information as you want about the student. Down here you see the classes that the student is a part of. So there is the option of having a student in more than one class. To add a student to a class, we tap on the list and simply select the class and go add, and then that student is now in 2 classes, which doesn't make a lot of sense, so we'll remove that there. Easy as. We'll see that there's other ways of adding students to classes a little bit further down the track. Going back to the list, the results button will bring up a list of all the results that student has achieved in their various learning tasks and rubrics over time. And again, back to the list. Now, we can also delete students from the list if they've moved on or you're no longer teaching them, simply by selecting them in the button over on the left and tapping delete selected will remove them from the list. Now you notice there's also a button here for import list, and it is in fact quite easy to bring in a whole class list from your school's system, but that is the topic of another video. Please have a look at that to go through the detail of how to import a list of students. Tapping on the email found set will in fact bring up the email package on your iPad that will then be addressed to all the students in the current found list, and you can then send a group email out to those students, which is a very useful feature. So going back again to on the home button, from where we can look at the assessment. So tapping on assessment brings us to the classes and assessment layout. This layout is the central pivot of Rubrica, and understanding what goes on here is the key to being able to effectively use Rubrica to assess your students with the rubrics that you have created. On the left-hand column, we have the list of classes that you teach. Tapping on a class will bring up the details for that class. The middle column is the list of learning tasks that you are assessing for that class, and the right-hand column is the list of students that are in the class. It is very easy to bulk add students to a class by tapping the Add button and selecting those students who you want to add to the class. So tapping Add, and well, one of them was already there, so we have another name in the class. Now, creating a new class, we tap the New button here, and let's put in Year 11 Maths for some strange reason. You can add a description for the class if you want, and tapping Save brings us to there, and from where we can add some students to the class. And let's just do Mary and Bart there and go Add, and from there we can add or start to create our learning tasks. Let's do an arithmetic test. We can put in a description if we want. Now, the date assigned is the date that you give the task to the students. It's relevant here in that it represents, or it is the sort field that will be used to sort the fields in the list. So they will appear in date order in the list. Now, the next important thing is to say, okay, which rubric are we going to use on this assessment? So we tap here to bring up the list of rubrics, and we'll choose our maths rubric here, even though it's not quite relevant to arithmetic. And then when we see the maximum mark associated there, and then we tap Save, and there it is. We have our learning task with the rubric that is used to make the assessment. Now from there, once we've created our list of learning tasks that we're using in the semester or the term, we can then actually make an assessment of a student. I will point out at this point that wherever you see a little asterisk that is coloured red, there is a little note against that student. So you can tap on the asterisk, I'll just bring that in there, and you can see that there is a note associated with that student. You can take the note out and the asterisk will no longer be read. Okay, so tapping on the Assess button will take us to the assessment screen, and we're assessing Bart here. We get the details of what's being assessed, the arithmetic test using this rubric. We can make a comment here with respect to the assessment overall, but we also have the option making a comment for against each individual criteria. So to make the assessment, it's as simple as tapping on the value associated that is associated with each criteria that is relevant. So we can say, okay, did well there, not so well there, and you can see the scores starting to come in over here. And perhaps didn't do so well there, and of course he was present, so he gets 10, and we get a total of 16 out of 20. So it is as easy as that to make your assessments. We can add a comment with respect to any one of these criteria. Just put some text in there and go save, and we see that the comment button is coloured green to indicate that a comment is associated with that particular criteria and mark. So we can go back to classes, we can select the next student, and again, in fact, if we did that and said they were absent, then we by default the student will get 2 out of 2. I would point out here that we have this print result button up here by which you can print out the rubric as presented on the screen here for the students. In fact, it can be emailed to the students if necessary. So I'm going to tap the PDF option to show you where we have the option of emailing it, but I'll view it here so that you can see it. And there it is in its entirety with the comment fields all there for comments that you make to show. And we can then just tap done, and we go back. And then, so that's one option for exporting your results for other people to use. If we go back to the classes, we see here that for the whole class, we can print results as well. So, again, PDF and view. And that is what you can indeed print out and present to or use to enter into the reporting system for your school, etc. I will say, but I won't go so far here in this video, that there's also the option of exporting the results as an Excel spreadsheet, which also might be of benefit to you. So that's pretty much it. Tapping the home button brings us back to home. I hope this little video has been useful to you in helping you get started with Rubrica, and that the app itself will be helpful to you in assessing your students using rubrics. Thank you.